But they are the team that's getting hot at the right time. They are. Their pitching's coming into form. Their bullpen's been great. They found a closer, and their lineup is starting to heat up.
You are Locked On Yankees, your daily New York Yankees podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Yankees, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your hosts, Stacey Gotsulias. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. With me, as always, is my co-host, Brian McKeon. Brian, hello.
Still in stun of what's gone on in the standings. Really crazy.
Oh, I was just saying hello because I haven't seen you in a few days. And
yes, good weekend.
Yes, we're stunned. We are. And we're going to talk about how stunned we are at what we're heading into this week because we thought it was going to be completely different than what it is. So, yeah. Before we get started, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast on whichever podcasting platform you prefer. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube, like our videos, hit the bell so you're notified whenever our videos go live. So we will be previewing that big series between the Yankees and the Orioles. We'll talk about the pitching matchups. We're also going to discuss just how crazy the wild card race is because it's gotten insane. Teams that you thought were going to be in are not. Teams that you thought did not have a chance in heck are there now. It's crazy. So we're going to talk about it and how it might affect the Yankees at some point during the playoffs. But first, let's talk about our Yankees. 6 games up on the Orioles.
Yeah,
Holy cow.
I mentioned this last night. Who the heck saw this coming? Like them making up 6 games going into the Orioles series. Stacey, me and you sat here the last month and said, if it's a 2-game lead, I feel confident.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a 2-game lead, and I thought we were being a little optimistic.
Right.
With a 2-game lead. Stacey, they're up 6. The Orioles can sweep the Yankees and still not catch them.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. It's crazy how insane this has become. The Orioles might not win 90 games.
Right.
Which I mean, before the year, if you thought they weren't going to win 90 games, people would thought you're crazy. They were on a fast track to win 100 games. It really has been an unbelievable season. The Yankees are probably going to win 95 games, which, I mean, I don't think anyone really saw that happening in June, July. No. It's really been remarkable. I hate to use this expression, but it is the truth here. And I'm if we're going to admit it for the Yankees, we're going to admit it for the Mets too. They are getting hot at the right time.
Yes.
And I don't want to sit there and be that guy that's like, they're going to win the pennant and everything like that. It's not fair. But they are the team that's getting hot at the right time. They are. Their pitching's coming into form. Their bullpen's been great. They found a closer, and their lineup is starting to heat up. Judge, Soto, Dominguez, they're all playing super well at the right time. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to win the pennant. I'm not going to sit here and say they're a lock for the World Series. That's not fair. But, the Yankees and the Mets both just have gotten it rolling at the absolute optimal time that you need to at this time of year. I'm at a loss for words, especially the Oakland series is the Oakland series, right? Oakland season has been over for a month. They're looking forward to getting on the golf course. That's where it's at. The Seattle series, to go into Seattle and play like that against a team that is as desperate as any team in baseball, Stacey, there's no words for how well they've played. It really is incredible.
Yeah, because I said before the West Coast trip that, they had a chance to do what they did on the last West Coast trip and completely fool us into thinking, oh, maybe it might not be that good. And then they come back doing what they did. And they did. I'm thrilled that they swept Oakland just because even though Oakland's overall record wasn't great, they were starting to do a little better within this last month and a half. You had Brent Rooker. They shut him down. I saw stats that they said like Brent Rooker and Lawrence Butler together since June. Like, how people cherry pick stats and it was like, since June, they've been batting this and it's better than what Aaron Judge and Juan Soto have done overall. It was that sort of a thing. And I just thought it was really hilarious that the Yankees literally shut down Brent Rooker the entire series.
Why don't we discuss, if you want to bring up one of those June stats, we're going to, take a certain arbitrary date and to our advantage. Let's take one that's actually used, but this date actually does mean something. It is significant. How about since July 1st? Jason Dominguez has more home runs than Alex Verdugo. and I'm bringing that up now for a certain reason. They're going to have a tough decision. And there is talk out there that I've specifically heard from people inside the organization that I know, that there is legitimate thought Dominguez is not going to make the playoff roster. Like an actual thought. And I can't imagine that happening. Well, let me preface that. I can absolutely imagine that happening. I can imagine the Yankees doing that. I can't imagine them justifying that as being a good idea.
Right.
I don't know how you can justify keeping this kid off the playoff roster.
Right.
But I will say, would it shock me? Not really in the least bit, to be quite honest with you.
No, it wouldn't shock me either. It would annoy me. I joked on my Instagram stories that I would start a riot if Alex Verdugo were put on the roster over Jason Dominguez, but it's going to happen because he apparently, I don't know if he has blackmail photos of someone, but he just keeps getting playing time, and I don't understand why.
He's hit well over the last month, but I mean, well to his standard. He still
I
has
was going to
not
say,
had a
I'm
good
like,
year.
Gleyber's been hitting
standard.
well over the last month, not Alex
That is very
Verdugo.
true. But Verdugo still, I mean, even he's hitting about the same as Dominguez since Dominguez has gotten called up. And here's the thing. Dominguez gives you the power element. Verdugo does not. And I know they want to hit you with the Verdugo's bat has been great. Glove has been great. It hasn't been. His glove, he's been a very mediocre outfielder. He really has not been a great outfielder. I'll tell you what the move that I would make is, because they're going to need a fourth outfielder. I would have Dominguez be on the starting lineup, and I would have Trent Grisham on the team. I think he's more valuable in a playoff roster than Verdugo is. I just think his fielding is better. His arm is better. There's a lot more value placed in having Trent Grisham on this team than there is in Verdugo.
And Grisham also hits for more power now than Verdugo. Like,
he does.
Grisham doesn't play as much, but he's hitting grand slams when you need him to.
And Stacey, it is the truth, especially in these playoff series where, by the way, look through the American League. Take your time if you're out there listening to the show. Look through the American League and look at the amount of teams that are going to be built on pitching going through the American League, right? Yankees have had really good starting pitching. I'd say they're more built on power, but their pitching's really good. But let's ignore the Yankees because they're not going to face themselves, obviously. But Baltimore, what I'm seeing, not necessarily built on pitching, but Cleveland, built on pitching. Kansas City, built on pitching. Detroit, built on pitching. Houston has an ace, and Justin Verlander has another ace built on pitching. Look at all these teams. If somehow Seattle gets in, built on pitching. These series that they go, whoever they're going to play in the CS and the DS, it is going to be the matter of a one-run game, a big hit here, a la Greg Bird 2017 Game 3 against the Cleveland Guardians, where he hits one solo home run, and that's the difference in the game. I'd rather have a Jason Dominguez in my lineup that can run into one and put one out when there's no in the game. If you go back to that Cleveland game, and please go back and think of that game. The Yankees could not hit the broadside of a barn in that game. They were unable to hit a single thing at all until Greg Bird put one on the barrel and drove it into the right field seats, and it changed the entire outcome of that series.
Andrew Miller.
That's all that mattered. That was the only play that mattered, the only hit that mattered. That was the only thing. It changed the entire outcome of that entire series. That is all you need in a playoff series sometimes. Jason Dominguez has the ability to do that. Alex Verdugo does not. And Alex Verdugo has proven to you that he does not have the ability to do that. You need that element of power in your lineup of a guy that can just run into a ball. And Grisham has it too, but you need that element of power in a lineup, because one hit like that, when your team cannot hit, and we've seen this Yankee team this year get into those modes where they are not able to hit throughout an entire game, that one hit could change the entire outcome of a series. You need that bat in your lineup.
It's also not just the hit, because if you go back to 2001 and the flip play, the Yankees went into Oakland down 0-2. That play doesn't happen. They lose that game. They get swept out of that series. So if you have someone in the field who can actually play the field in the outfield, like Trent Grisham, maybe he makes a play that changes a game that's close. It could be both.
These playoff series come down to sometimes one pitch, one moment, one big play, and you need the most talent on your roster there. And right now, Jason Dominguez is the most talent on the roster. He is. To me, there's no justifiable explanation of why Verdugo deserves to be on this roster other than he's buddies with Aaron Judge. And I hate pulling that narrative because it's ridiculous. And I don't think it's a Judge thing where Judge is going to ownership or Cashman and saying, I want him. That's not what's going on here. I don't understand, though. Look, why are you trying to play coy to Judge? He's under contract for 9 more years. You don't have to be nice to him anymore. You gave him the captaincy. You gave him a boatload of money. He's under contract for the next decade. you don't have to play nice with Aaron Judge anymore. You don't. Like, he's here no matter what. And he's going to like it here no matter what. And also, Alex Verdugo is not going to be on the team next year.
Right.
So whose feelings are you trying to preserve here? Does Aaron Judge care more about his buddy being on the team or winning a World Series? And Jason Dominguez gives him a better chance to win a World Series. I'm at a serious fear that's what's going to happen. I do think there's a legitimate possibility Dominguez doesn't make this roster, and I think he deserves to make it.
Yeah. There are a few things that worry me about the playoff roster. The Verdugo thing and Clay Holmes.
I think Clay Holmes is going to make the roster, and I think there's very, 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 very good reason for him not to be on the roster. And I don't think you need him, especially if you're going to put Nestor in the bullpen and how good he's been out of the bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
Especially Stroman, too, who's been solid out of the bullpen. If you're going to add those guys in the bullpen, you don't need Clay Holmes in the bullpen.
Yeah.
I do think there's a chance he makes it, though.
Yeah. Oh, no.
They fall into obsessions with certain players, and I think he's one of those guys.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried that Boone is going to think, okay, maybe he snaps out of it here. Maybe he comes out of it here, and it's just going to cost them.
You can't. You can't in big spots like this. But, I mean, that's what scares me about the whole postseason, Stacey, because, and it should scare every Yankee fan listening, Aaron Boone has proven that he cannot manage a bullpen.
Nope.
And it's going to cost you at some point in a postseason game. It just is.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one more thing. Let's briefly, just for like 2 seconds, Tim Hill. Can we talk about the job that Tim Hill's doing?
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. He comes out of nowhere. People are like, Tim Hill, what? 5 pitches in that inning the other day? Just
you find amazing. These guys out of nowhere, and the guy that you thought was going to be the guy was Leiter. And Leiter's been other than the game in Oakland, Leiter's been awful pretty much. I mean, it really since the trade deadline, it's kind of sad to see. The guy that got to get props to, and we should give it to them before we hit the break, Luke Weaver. And I know Yankee fans know how good he's been, but no one could have saw this coming.
No.
And he was basically the first guy that got a quasi tryout in the closer role, and he took it. He said that he didn't let anybody else get a chance. He was that good in the closer role. From what I've heard from around the clubhouse, he is a very goofy personality in the clubhouse, a jokester, everything. And he is the complete opposite of that on the mound.
Yep.
And you know who was like that? Mariano Rivera.
He was.
Very loose guy in person, but on the mound, there is nothing more serious going on than what's going on in the mound right there. And Luke Weaver is that exact same way.
Yep. All right. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button on our videos, hit the notification so you know when our videos go up. Also reply to the pinned comment on our videos Monday through Thursday, or this week, Tuesday through Thursday, because I forgot to put the pinned comment up on Monday's video. Sorry, I wasn't feeling well yesterday. If you'd like your questions answered for Fan Mail Friday, or you can join the Locked On Yankees Insiders Club, there's a link in the description. You'll get text from us. You can text us questions. I'll send you out lineups and any kind of roster moves that were made. By the way, happy trails to poor Ron Marinaccio, who was DFA'd by the Yankees and picked up by the White Sox.
Yeah, worst thing possible.
Womp. Coming up next, we'll be talking about other teams in the White Sox division who are making a splash in the wild card race.
PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. And unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Want to play PrizePicks alongside Drewski, Joe Budden, and MMA champ Sugar Sean O'Malley? You can now find community plays under the promos tab of the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the PrizePicks community each week. PrizePicks puts their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Guys, NFL season's rolling around. Basketball and hockey are starting soon. College football's around. College basketball starts soon. It's all there. There's a million things you can do on PrizePicks. You just got to go on and find the best things possible. And here's how you're going to do it. You're going to download the PrizePicks app today and use code ONEWORD Locked On MLB to get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code ONEWORD Locked On MLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. Don't forget that you can catch every pitch of the New York Yankees hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Yankees. Stacey, we're back for segment 2. Monday night really has no significant baseball games being played against any teams. Mariners, Astros play. Astros pretty much have the division locked up, and the Mariners are chasing, but really, really, really chasing. We go to the wild card race, and this is what's fascinating to me. If you guys haven't paid attention much to baseball over the last month, and I'm sure a lot of you have, but let's go over some things. Baltimore has pretty much stayed in that first wild card spot. Other than one day when the Yankees slipped below, a half game below and went into the first wild card, Baltimore has stayed in the top of that wild card spot. It's really been, insane. They're 4 games up right now with 6 games to play. Odds are Baltimore's going to make it. Just out of, even if they lost the rest of their games, somehow the other teams are going to lose games, and Baltimore's going to get in. Here's what's fascinating. Scheduling-wise for the other teams on the way out. Because you look at the matchups. Let's go to Kansas City first. Kansas City, who, if the exact opposite of what Detroit's doing, and we'll get to Detroit in a second, Kansas City's reeling like crazy. They can't win games. They've lost like 8 of the last 9 right now. It was almost a guarantee they were going to get into the postseason. They almost were going to catch their division, and they've just completely fallen off. It's been really tragic for them. They get a little bit of a break in the first set of their last 6 games. The first series, last 6 games is against the Nationals. They're in Washington, but they get the Nationals, and they get Patrick Corbin in that series, who has like a 15,000 ERA. So you do get a little bit of a respite there, but the last 3 games of their season are against the Braves in Atlanta, in games that the Braves are most likely going to need like death. So that is really, really, really a tough spot for a team not playing well. Would you say they almost have to sweep Washington?
Yeah. Definitely.
Because Atlanta is going into that series playing. I mean, granted, Atlanta will not have their best starters going in that series because they're throwing their top guys out against the Mets, because Atlanta's best chance to get in is to beat the Mets. But Kansas City could be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And for a team that looked like they were a guarantee shoo-in, I mean, Stacey, if you look at the standings, they were unbelievably close to catching Cleveland. They were a game and a half back of Cleveland, and now they're 7.5 back.
Yeah.
They've just not been able to win. And there's a chance on them they missed the wild card. The team that's going to get in, and it's been unbelievably impressive. No one understands how they're doing it, but they are. The Detroit Tigers. They were 10.5 games out in August. Mm-hmm. Not out of the division, out of the wild card.
Mm-hmm.
They were 10.5 out. They're now right in the mix of it. They've leapfrogged Minnesota, who at present day right now would be out of the postseason. What an unbelievable stretch for the Tigers. And I got to tell you something. Spunky offense, really good ace-level starting pitcher, and I know you all like to hate him, but it's the truth. A playoff experienced manager. Stacey, I wouldn't want anything to do with the Detroit Tigers.
No.
I would not want anything to do with them. They are, we talked about the Yankees being hot at the right time. They are the definition of being hot at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say before Kansas City got into their funk, they would have been the ones that I was most afraid of. But now the Tigers have leapt over them. And it's incredible what they've done in the last month and a half.
They've got 3 games against Tampa at home in Detroit. Then they have 3 games against the White Sox, who would have already broken the record for most losses in a season and are really, really checked out. Detroit's in an unbelievably great spot to make. It would be a shock at this point if they didn't get in, which is, again, unbelievable year from AJ Hinch. By the way, this team sold at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
This team traded Jack Flaherty away at the deadline.
Yeah.
And Mark Hanna. So if you really want to consider what they've done, an unbelievable year. Very, very, very reminiscent of the 2016 Yankees, that Detroit team. Had somewhat of aspirations coming in, not really now you feel, sells at the deadline to get prospects, and then gets hot at the end of September and almost makes the playoffs. Except Detroit's going to get in. That Yankee team would have got in if there was an extra wild card spot.
Right.
That Yankee team missed the playoffs by a game. Somehow. I don't know how that team got back into. Well, I do know. Gary Sanchez went berserk for the last month of the year.
Absolutely.
That makes no sense.
Yeah.
And then you look at the rest of this playoff chase. Minnesota has 3 games against the Marlins and then 3 games against the Orioles. Marlins don't need those games. The Orioles are going to need those games. So Minnesota going to be a really tough spot for them to get in. Seattle is still alive. They've got 3 games against the Astros, and then they've got 3 games against the Athletics. So you look at all these matchups. It's Stacey. I think it's going to be Detroit and, dare I say, Minnesota that gets it, because I think Kansas City having to see the Atlanta Braves is just, it makes it so impossible with how they're playing right now. They almost are forced to sweep Washington and then take 1 out of the 3 against the Braves. And I don't know if they're going to do that.
It also depends on how the Braves do against the Mets, because the Mets just took 3 out of 4 against Philly. I know Philly is
Mets don't lose.
But the Mets aren't losing. And Atlanta's
injured, now currently games back of the Mets. So Atlanta, to get ahead of the Mets, Atlanta's going to have to sweep them.
And I don't see that happening.
Exactly. So if Atlanta only takes 2 out of 3, the Mets are tied with them. And the Mets last year, this is what's crazy too. The Mets last series of the year is going to be against Milwaukee. And if the Mets get in the wild card, they'll play Milwaukee in the first round. So they might stay in Milwaukee for a week. It's going to be crazy. But their last series is against Milwaukee, who has everything knotted up, everything tied up, knows who they're going to be playing, and is going to have their division completely locked up at that point. Already has it locked up. There's nothing to play for. So if the Mets just take 1 game in Atlanta, they've got to win basically 1 game in Milwaukee to have the playoff spot clinched up. So Atlanta's going to be playing in that series like death. That's the only way Kansas City gets in. Is if Atlanta then has nothing to play for, and then they just give up on those games. But fascinating. I think right now the team that you don't mind Minnesota. You just beat Seattle if they get in, and Kansas City is reeling like all crazy. I'm very intrigued to see how the Yankees play this Baltimore series, because there is still something to play for.
Right.
But Stacey, I'm sorry, Detroit, I want absolutely nothing to do with them.
Yeah, I don't
nothing to do with them.
I'm sick of seeing the Yankees being eliminated by the Tigers. That's that's another team that they have issues with, right? 06, 11, 12.
There's been too many examples where you don't want to see. I'm good. And not even that I don't want to see Detroit. I don't want to see Detroit with a young stud pitcher, because we've seen that nightmare before too.
Right. Yeah, that's a little too familiar as well. Yeah. There's a lot of nightmare scenarios. There are also good scenarios that can happen to the Yankees too. It's not all doom and gloom, obviously, but yeah.
Give me Minnesota.
There are certain things where you're just thinking to yourself, you'd rather one thing over the other. But also just be careful. Just because Minnesota isn't playing well, they're due. Like there's 22 years of due-ness, and it's going to happen at some point. We don't know when, but it's going to happen at some point.
I'll take them.
All right. Coming up next, we will be previewing the pitching matchups in this big series between the Yankees and the Orioles.
Hey, NFL fans, you can start this season off with a big return on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you can place your bets. Giants play Thursday night against the Cowboys. You like the Cowboys coming into MetLife as a 4.5-point favorite? You like the Giants as a dog coming off a win in Cleveland? Can they get the win there? How about Jets-Broncos? That's a fun one to see, right? That'll also be at MetLife. Jets are a 7-point favorite. Lots of fun games coming into this NFL season. Week 4 already. It's flying by. Make sure that you get all your futures, all your regular season bets, and everything possible in on FanDuel. You'll get started right now with a $200 in bonus bets. It's guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's it. It's all available to you on FanDuel.com. And welcome back to Locked On Yankees. Remember that you can catch every pitch of the Yankees hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Yankees. Stacey, welcome back. No game Monday night, so we'll get to Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Insane how this has by far been the most anticipated series of the season. We've been talking about this Baltimore series for what feels like forever.
Like 3 months.
It's finally here. And it's so much more of a dud series than we thought, right? It's crazy. No one would have thought it'd be this much of a dud series.
Not even last week, like a week ago at this point when we were talking about it, because we had this on our radar. I'm not even kidding, for the past 3 months, because we were looking ahead to see how the Yankees were going to do in August, who they were playing. And then we looked at September even back then, and we're thinking, oh, wow, that series against the Orioles in the last week of the season is going to be really big because of the way.
And the Yankees need, this is the combination they need to clinch the American League East. They need Baltimore to lose at least one more game the rest of the season, or they need to win one more game the rest of the season. That is it. So Yankees get the Pirates. Obviously, that happens if the Yankees win any of the Orioles games. But the Yankees have to get swept by the Orioles. The Orioles, in turn, would have to sweep the Minnesota Twins. And then the Yankees would have to get swept by the Pirates. Really unlikely scenario the Yankees don't win this division at this point. Really unlikely, which is crazy to think of. I will say this, and I don't like to put down other places, but this needs to be said. The ESPN app of pitching matchup rotations has been so brutal over the last month. I put these things in the rundown, as you can see, that the pitching matchups that were going to be had the series, completely wrong. And this was 2 days ago. Completely wrong. So let's go over the accurate pitching matchups, shall we? Game 1, Dean Kramer will go for Baltimore. He is 7-10 with a 4.15 ERA. That was correct. These are all 7:05 starts. The game 1 is going to be on TBS. Clark Schmidt will get the ball for the Yankees in game 1. He's 5-4, 2.37. I think it's guaranteed at this point, right, Stacey? He's got to be your 4th starter in the playoffs, right?
I would think so.
He's been that good. There's no reason to not keep him on the playoff rotation. Game 2 of this series, which is going to be Wednesday night. This is going to be Zach Eflin will go. He's 10-9 with a 3.53 ERA. Been really good since getting to Baltimore, so it's been really key for them. Yankees will start Nestor Cortez. He's 9-10 with a 3.77 ERA. Nestor at home is a different animal, and Nestor over the last 3 weeks has been a different animal. Really, since being do you want to call it benched? Because it really wasn't a benching. They really just skipped his spot in the rotation, and he acted like a baby about it. Regardless, the Yankees, again, they just need to take one of these games. Mm-hmm. Just one of these games, and the division is theirs. Game 3 of that series is going to be Corbin Burns, 15-8 with a 2.95. He's been all advertised. Baltimore's going to pay him a truckload of money this offseason. He'll go against Garrett Cole, 7-5 with a 3.67 ERA. Garrett Cole, I want to bring this up, Stacey, because you'll find this impressive. He's thrown 88 1/3 innings this year. More than likely, he'll finish off somewhere with 94, 95 innings pitched this year. Way less than his normal workload of like 240. Garrett Cole has 94 strikeouts.
Nice.
He's 6 strikeouts away from 100 strikeouts in a season where he pitched for like 2 months.
Yeah.
I mean, he's literally on pace this year for like a 300 strikeout pace. Unbelievable how good he's been with the strikeout ball. Home runs are sort of down for Garrett Cole. 3.67 ERA. If you take out the 2 starts against the Mets, his ERA is probably in the low 2s. Garrett Cole's been incredible for the Yankees this year.
Well, and that start against the Red Sox.
Yeah, and the start against the Red Sox. But how about, can we mention too, the start how good he was in Oakland?
Oh yeah.
He threw a complete game. I mean, he was unbelievable how good he was.
I think he was playing with a chip on his shoulder because of what happened against the Red Sox and all the stuff that was being said about him. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, all right, because I like pissed off Garrett Cole, because pissed off Garrett Cole pitches really well. Apparently pissed off Nestor Cortez does too. So who knew that was the secret?
Because if pissed off entered Yankee pitcher's name here works really well, you'd think a manager who calls his players out publicly might be a good thing.
Right.
Because they'd be pissed. Let's move on. But that'll be Garrett Cole's last start of the regular season. His next start after that will be game 1 of the ALDS. So lots of things to look for. That should be Clark Schmidt's last start of the regular season. Also, definitely with Nestor Cortez's last start. They won't start Clark Schmidt in that last series. There's no way they're going to start him in the last game of the season.
So unless they need the game. So does that mean that Rodon pitches the first game against the Pirates?
It depends. If they have things like if they have things locked up.
Oh, will he pitch against the Pirates? That's what I mean.
I would think no. If they win one of the Baltimore games and they are locked up, they will have Rodon throw normal like a simulated game. They'll have him do that. They're not going to have him throw in a regular season. They can't do that.
Damn it. Because if he starts one more and wins, I get my bold prediction of 17 wins. Damn it. Okay.
Ooh. But yeah, I can't imagine them doing that. I would think what happens if they don't clinch against, if they get swept by Baltimore, then Rodon will absolutely start in Pittsburgh. Well, in the Pittsburgh series, Clark Schmidt will start the last game of the season, and Marcus Stroman will probably start the second game of that series. He's going to have to get a win against Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
If that doesn't happen, Will Warren probably gets called up and gets to start somewhere. You're not going to see Luis Heel. Like, they're going to keep these guys' arms fresh, and they'll throw simulated games to keep themselves on their normal schedule. But I think there's a high probability they don't start these guys. You just can't at this point risk an injury.
I'm just being selfish, okay? Because I was very, I was close. I was really close.
It was a good prediction.
Yeah, people thought I was crazy when I said that, but if it weren't for a few bad weeks there, I would have gotten my old prediction.
Went through that one bad stretch, but other than that, Rodon's been terrific too. And he really deserves a round of applause for this season because he really has been terrific. Other than the one bad stretch, he's been unbelievable. Really.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how things shake out. Again, just 1 out of 3 here, guys.
Take one.
Just take one. That's all you got to do. We know you don't like playing at home. We know you like playing on the road better for some unknown reason. They're 50 and 31 on the road.
Speaking of which, will you be at any playoff games? Do you have tickets to any games yet?
No.
I'll be at game 2 of the DS and game 2 of the CS and a potential game 7 of the CS. So we'll see. I'll definitely be at game 2 of the ALDS. I can't get enough of the environment though.
Yeah.
Yankee playoffs. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah. I haven't been. When was the last time I was at a playoff game? 2011.
You should go.
Was that the last game I went to? I think so. That was the last playoff game I went to. 2011.
You should go. You get paid this week.
They lost.
You get paid this week.
They lost to the Tigers. I went to the first game. That was the game. That was when they had to resume the game because of rain. And my friend who had come up from Virginia couldn't go to the resumption. So he's like, do you want my tickets? You don't even have to pay for them. I'm like, hell yes, I do. So I went with my brother. We saw Cano hit the grand slam off Al Albuquerque, who Mike Francesa didn't realize was a real person.
No.
And then I had tickets for game 2, which was another game that was screwed up by rain. And they ended up losing that one. And that was my last playoff game. So
you should go again.
We'll see. If I can find it. Are there any sugar daddies out there that want to pay for a ticket for me?
Careful what you wish for.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm too.
We have a lot of listeners now. So
or sugar. Actually, sugar baby
will reach out.
Sugar baby at this point, because I'm. Yeah. So if there are any sugar babies out there who'd like to take me, I'm kidding. I would never do that. I'm just joking. It's a joke for legal purposes. It's a joke. I would never do that. Anyway. One more time, you can catch every pitch of the Yankees hometown broadcast with SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search the word Yankees. And we'd like to thank you for making Locked On Yankees your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On MLB podcast. Prepare for the Fall Classic with Sully, who has it all covered every single day. The link to Locked On MLB is in the description, so you don't need to search. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And make sure you check out the Locked On Yankees postcast right here on the Locked On Yankees podcast feed, as well as streaming on the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. You get rapid reaction to all the biggest moments with the Locked On Yankees postcast. So that'll do it for this edition of Locked On Yankees. I'm Stacey Gotsoulias.
And I'm Brian McKeon. We'll catch you tomorrow after the Baltimore game.